Today's episode is brought to you by Mountain Doom.
Hello everyone, this is Justin Biggs from a band called Sorcerer, and you're watching Metal Forge Reviews.
What's up, guys? Welcome to Metal Forge Reviews. We have another exciting interview today. We interviewed Justin Biggs from the epic doom band Sorcerer. They just released a new album called Lamenting the Innocent. Just came out this past May. Check it out now. We talked to Justin about some really exciting stuff that this band does, how they record their records, what they did to go into the creation of Lamenting of the Innocent. It's inspired by a lot of the horrible stories involved with the persecution of witchcraft, but this is a lot more than that. And it's a great view into the band on how these guys work together and how they create such special music. Stay tuned. This is a really cool interview. Let us know what you think in the comments. And we're actually really close to 200 subscribers. Make sure you hit that subscribe button because we want to keep creating content for you guys. This has been an absolute blast. And again, thank you so much for your viewership and stay tuned.
Welcome in to another interview segment on Metal Forge Reviews. Today, we are joined by Justin Biggs of the epic doom metal band Sorcerer. Their latest album, Lamenting of the Innocent, is now out on Metal Blade Records. Justin, thanks for taking the time to be with us today. How are things going on your end?
Thank you for having me. Yeah, everything's going really well over here. We're really excited about the album release and yeah, just pumped to see what you guys think of it. The follow-up to The Crowning of the Fire King, and we've been hard at work on this labor of love. So really excited to see what you guys think.
Yeah, we are very excited to hear it for sure. Sorcerer has a rich history starting in 1988 and releasing a couple of demos before disbanding. These demos caught a lot of attention, but unfortunately the group disbanded in 1992. In 2010, they officially reformed, and since the 2015 release of In the Shadow of the Inverted Cross, and they have been on Metal Blade. Sorcerer has been quite busy since then. Justin, you're certainly not a newcomer to the Swedish metal scene, but you're the newest member of Sorcerer. Can you tell us about how you came to join the band? Were you aware of them in your days in the Swedish metal scene?
Yeah, I mean, I knew Jonny Hagel, the original bass player, for a long time. We're good friends, we're really tight, and Jonny is still a very integral member of the band, actually. He's in the background, kind of pulling the puppet strings. It happened to be that he wanted to take a step back and gave me a call and said, what would you think about doing Sorcerer? And I loved it. I mean, I listened to Inverted Cross and thought it was a great record. And then when I heard The Crowning of the Fire King, I was totally bowled over and blown away. So I was like, yes, every time, yes, let me, have my hands in on this. And it was just a really cool experience. The guys are super lovely and they were just so welcoming, and being the new guy, of course, I'm a little bit younger as well. So it was a really cool, humbling, and just welcoming experience for me.
That's a great story, man, and it's so cool to be in the scene and to be kind of in the shadow of this giant band like Sorcerer, and then being asked by one of, I would say, probably one of the biggest names in the Swedish, goth and doom metal scene. What an honor it must have been to be brought onto that.
Yeah, I mean, Jonny is a legend when it comes to bands. I mean, he was playing in Sorcerer, and he's also been playing in Tiamat and bands like that. And I mean, the records that he's had his hands on have been just absolutely fantastic. So it was a real honor, and like I said, a humbling experience for me being a newcomer. I'm really thankful for that.
We'd love to get an inside look on how Sorcerer writes music. Some of the bands that we speak to have more of a traditional style where everyone kind of gets together, jams on riffs, and fleshes out the music in a more organic fashion, while others kind of work remotely and send ideas to each other like online. So talk a little bit about how Sorcerer approaches writing a record.
Yeah, I mean, Lamenting of the Innocent was a bit different in terms of how Sorcerer writes a record. This was a bit more free, a bit more liberal. Being, like I said, a newcomer, I didn't actually write on The Fire King. I was brought in after it was released. So this one we had kind of free hands. It was like, oh, there's a new guy. He has his inputs. Ricky's back. He was playing on the demos from 1992. So he had his input as well. And yeah, it was just this really cool flow about, I could sit at home and demo a song and write a song and the lyrics and stuff like, this is my vision, and then send it to Christian, Peter, Anders, and Ricky. And they would be like, okay, yay or nay. And we didn't really have so many nays. We had a lot of yays. Like, we really wanted to I think we have enough for another record. Yeah, just a really laid back, cool atmosphere when it came to writing, just the actual music. And when it came to the lyrical content later, that was when we kind of decided, like, do we want to do a concept? And it's pretty ambitious to do a concept record, but we felt like, yes, a concept, but kind of like scaled down, not a full-on story, rather the thin red line that goes through, the record, instead of focusing on like the story. So Lamenting of the Innocent is about the witch trials and the witch crazes in the the 1600s and stuff like that. We just kind of focused on that, and it was really, like I said, laid back. All input was welcome. We have Connie William, who's working with Anders as well, who gives inputs. He's like the studio guy, kind of behind the scenes as well, and Johnny as well. Yeah, just like I said, laid back, cool atmosphere, and really hard to pick favorites.
How did that go? How did you guys choose, what songs were going to go on this record?
We had a barbecue at Anders' place in Stockholm, and we flew our manager up from the Netherlands, and Johnny was there as well, and we actually went through all the songs that we'd written and voted. So that was how we decided what songs are going to be on Lamenting of the Innocent. Nothing glamorous by any means, but yeah, it's the vote.
What type of food is served at a Swedish barbecue?
That was like burgers and beer. That was what we wanted. It's more American than Swedish.
That's awesome. Lamenting the Innocent was mixed and produced by Ronnie Björnström, I'm sorry if I butcher that name, of Enhanced Audio Productions and Garageland Studios. These studios have produced, as a lot of people know, legendary Swedish metal records. Can you tell us about the recording process, and are there any epic studio stories that stand out to you during the recording of the album?
I mean, this record, like the other records before, are basically self-produced. By all means, we record the majority of stuff at home, actually. But Ronnie just brings like this magic. We went with Ronnie. If it's not broken, don't fix it. I mean, he just has a way of producing Sorcerer and making it sound so badass that, yeah, it's hard to say no. It's like, of course, yes. And we have had, other, mixing guys coming up to us, like producers, like Max Norman, for example. He mixed on this record as well, the bonus track Hellfire. We met him in the United States at Pro Power when we played there, and he was just so keen on mixing and mastering a Sorcerer record. But we'd already had Ronnie in mind, but we said, you know what, we're going to do this bonus track for fans, and yeah, you can have at it. But in terms of epic stories, I mean, it was more business, really. It was like, when you go in and record a record, you don't really go out and party the night before. It's very somber and very like, okay, I have to deliver. You really want to give your best, and you have to be on top of things. And I think that that's what these guys are about. I mean, Christian, I recorded mostly with Christian, actually. And it was like, you would say, you're speeding up, you're a bit too pumped up. It's Doom, think it's Doom. So don't think about the metronome. He's like, think a bit longer back, don't go on the click, be easy. Yeah, I have no complaints. It's always a pleasure. and it's always fun to work with these guys. So
That's awesome. I mean, I sort of expected that, like, a band that's been around this long is seasoned in the ways of doing things, you would think. And, and Ben and I come from a background of recording as well. So when we asked that question, we weren't necessarily thinking about, did you guys do something crazy? It was more along the lines of, what are your rituals for recording? What are the things that you guys do, before getting ready? And we've said this in other interviews, like, there's a certain level of madness that has to go into recording an album where you're doing take after take after take and you have to get it right. And then in the end, you get this really magical thing. And was there anything like that when you guys were recording? Was there anything in particularly challenging or tough to do that really made it special?
I always take a Canadian guy called Glenn Fricker, the SMG thing on YouTube. Really cool guy, and he always shits on the bass players, and I think it's hilarious. But he said one very valuable thing, and that was actually, I'm an avid fan of the guy, and I watch him regularly, and he gave some advice that I think was really sound for any musician, not just bass players, but any musician, and it's learn the songs before you go into the studio. Sit and learn the songs, because if you don't know the material, it's going to be drawn out. You have to feel the material. You have to sit with it. Once you know it, then you can play around with it in the studio. That's the difference. It's one thing to not know it and kind of wing it, but if you know the material, at least the skeleton of it, then you can have some fun with it. And that was one thing that was really important, I think, in the recording of this. Like, we really sat down with the material and overanalyzed it. So it was like being kind of like musician Gestapo, just like, we have to have it like like it's just got to be good.
That's awesome that you took Glenn along. That's kind of a funny insider thing. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I'm a bit of a nerd, so it was just that's just one, like, I'll be going through my phone and say, Glenn's posted a new video, so I gotta watch it. He's hilarious.
Yeah, I watch him too. He's a great guy, and it's cool. Like, he's produced some of my favorite albums, like Woods of Ypres stuff, and I love that stuff. And he's definitely become a very widely respected engineer in the world, and he's worked hard for it, man. The album art was created by, and I'm going to butcher this name again, so please feel free to correct me, Dusan Markovic, an epic fantasy illustrator. Features a bright golden cover with an evil-looking priest and a woman in chains. Can you describe the concept behind the album art and how you got to work with the artist?
He does a lot of great, fantastic artwork. You should check him out. He has his Facebook and stuff like that, but we just thought, like, his artwork's beautiful. It's just gorgeous. When you look at it, like, we're all huge into vinyl, and when we were growing up and listening to music, it was like you take the vinyl out, you look at the cover, you overanalyze it, and you open it up, and you have this huge just masterwork of artwork. Like, that's what you do with a record. I miss that nowadays in terms of Spotify and iTunes and stuff like that. But yeah, it was something that we wanted, like, just have this big epic artwork that's just kind of jumps out at you. And again, the influence was the Middle Ages and the witch craze from the 1600s. Not necessarily the European witch craze, of course. We were thinking about Salem and stuff like that as well, but just that's what we wanted to do. Like, we wanted to, how can we portray this? And actually, I don't know the statistics, so I'm just going to throw a ballpark, but I would say like 9 out of 10, just to be like non-specific. Women were actually pretty much decimated under that time and being called witches. So naturally, it was like, there has to be a woman in the chains, because they were absolutely persecuted, oppressed, and over-dominated by the Catholic Church at that time. So that seemed like a natural approach, and just have this creepy Pope. We try to make him ugly with long nails to demonize it, because what happened at that time was absolutely just terrible. It was a Holocaust on its own. So that's what we went with, like, this terrible time where people were murdered for nothing. yeah, that's where the influence of the artwork comes from. But like I said, Do Some is, yeah, I think we're gonna continue working with that guy because he delivers every time.
Absolutely. I mean, it's totally nailed, and it's cool too to notice how well the album artwork translates into the feel of the songs and even the music videos. Like, you guys have this whole cohesive thing going on with this release, and it's really cool to see. And I love that you brought up the physical release thing, because we're big on that too. We're also physical collectors, but you know, it's cool to find bands that find that important, you know, where the artwork is part of the music and it's all intertwined. And it's cool too because Ben and I are actually from New England, so we're from kind of near Salem. Well, Ben's closer to Salem than I am, but that's one of my favorite places to visit, you know. And I want to take your record there and walk around and listen to it and see how it feels.
I think you should, because I would love. I've never been to Salem myself, but yeah, I love that history, even though it's dark and depressing. Yeah, it's always interested me. So
that town in particular is amazing because it's the people who are the artistic side sort of took it back. You know, like when you go there, it's a lot of artists, a lot of musicians, a lot of people with small businesses that are sort of reinventing a horrible thing that happened into something that's beautiful and accepting. So it's a very, very cool place to go. You should absolutely visit sometime.
yeah, I think it would be fantastic. Maybe we can do the record there. We'll do a special gig and we'll just do that, Lamenting of the Innocent live.
You'd probably break Salem if you did.
That would be awesome. As long as it goes down well with the locals, then that's fine. But I mean, to come from that history and to learn about it and to actually, you know, feel the sympathy for those people, like, I think that's a really beautiful thing. And I don't know, I think it's just a powerful point of history that connects not only Europe, you know. So I think that's kind of like a part of history that actually, sadly enough, connects us, because we had the same thing going on throughout those times. So I think it's kind of a cool story because it connects the world, not just, yeah, it's not isolated to Europe.
Connecting the world with Doom. Sorcerer came out with a few music videos to help promote the latest album. Awesome music videos, by the way. A couple in particular, The Hammer of Witches and Dance with the Devil, they both feature the band in a live setting, or sort of live setting, paralleled with narrative stories that seem to be based around, as you said, the late 1600s. Can you tell us what it was like recording these videos? Was there any, you know, interesting things that happened on set?
The video concept that we have, like I said, we went out with kind of a loose concept, but while we were deciding like how are we going to push this record, we decided that we recorded a video for every song. So when the record comes out, the special edition, there's a DVD, and all the songs have a video, and they follow a story, a loose story, anyways. But we worked with a guy called Daniel. He's got his record company, Heavy Groove Media. Just, I can't even explain it. He was just also phenomenal to work with. Just really easygoing. And normally, I myself, I don't like being on camera. Like, it's kind of awkward. But yeah, he just made it really simple. Like when you've got a camera kind of like stuck in your face and like, do something, make it work. It's like, I'm trying. But he was really easy to work with. So there's a few funny things coming out. We decided to record as well. As we were doing those videos, we did a documentary. But we'll be releasing 4 long documentaries on YouTube, just detailing the process. And the videos is actually one of the key points. And we had a lot of fun. You'll see it in the videos anyways. We did just a lot of just guy stuff, hanging out, you know, being like the brotherhood, camaraderie, doing just stupid stuff, dancing around, you know. We recorded the videos, like half of them in like a cellar, like kind of like an underground, almost like a sewer, like Hammer the Witches, that's recorded like in kind of like a sewer area, and it's underneath the Sona Sound Studios where we recorded the drums. And actually Wolf did their video there as well when they released their single. So it's the same place. And it's Simon from Wolf that's actually yeah, is the kind of like the owner or renting that area. So we kind of asked him nicely, can we borrow it too? It looks pretty badass. Dance with the Devil. He's recorded uh, north of Stockholm in an old like ironwork place. They had like they built railway trains, like the chains that's kind of I don't know what they do, like anchor the chains in some way or anchor the trains in some way, like and they had some old stuff from like 30 years ago, 40 years ago, like it's like a dilapidated ironwork. Uh, so there's lots of history there, anyways. But we just thought, yeah, it's a cool place to have these videos. Like it just looked strange and bizarre. So we didn't pick the area. The videographer, of course, said we have to do it here, and just a really cool place to do a video. I think we saw a lot of weird shit, and then of course Deliverance. That's with Johan Langqvist from Candlemass. That video was shot just outside of a place called Uppsala in Sweden, and they did it in a little cabin setting, so it's very intimate. The song itself is very intimate, so we wanted to, of course, portray that in the video as well. It's kind of like the soft spot on the record, and as a band going in, working with a videographer and having these different settings and stuff, you still have to work together and try to portray what you want to kind of deliver. And I think, we just worked really well together. So no hilarious, funny, weird stories by any means, just good times.
That's awesome. It sounds like you guys got a really awesome bond, and it just works. Everything just seems to go smooth, and that's great.
Yeah, I mean, working with these guys, and just hanging out, like these are people that you can call, like, hey man, how you doing? Or you could not see each other for a month, given this whole COVID thing. So when you see each other, it's like, yeah, I just saw you yesterday, even though it's been a month or 2 months. It's just friendly, familiar, and just lovely to work with these guys.
It's fun to talk about shop. So you've been playing bass for a while now, and we're curious about your live setup. And do you play any other instruments? Could you talk a little bit about your gear?
Yeah, I mean, my gear is pretty basic. I'm a bass player, of course. It's a Fender precision bass that I use, and I use at least in the rehearsal rooms, anyways, an Ampeg 8x10 and Ampeg heads. And in terms of pedals, I use I have the Dark Glass E7K Ultra from Finland, which is just an amazing piece of artillery, and a noise gate with a tuner. That's it. It's pretty naked. That's how it is. And then when I play like in a live setting, I just kind of go in directly with my pedal board. So I have my Dark Glass, my noise gate, and my tuner, and go in directly through the PA.
That's a hell of an arsenal, though. Even though it's simple, that Dark Glass pedal is one of the best things ever made.
They really hit the head of the nail with the hammer. It was just like, the Sans amp is great. I love the Sans amp, and I use that as a backup in case something happens with my setup. So there is a Sans amp pedal in the backup. I mean, Dark Glass have really kind of like just perfected this whole mid-range in terms of the bass sound, and they really focused on that instead. Like, it's one thing to have highs and lows, but the mid-range has always been, throughout the years, kind of a bit forgotten, and they really rounded that up really good with like the Alpha Omega, the B7K Ultra, stuff like that. Like, just a great piece of equipment to have. I had a big muff before, because I'm a huge Cliff Burton fan as well. So like when I started playing bass, like I had to have a big muff. It was like, yeah, I need that. And I actually used that for like the first year or so with Sorcerer. I had actually the Dark Glass with big muff, and it was just like overkill with the distortion. Sound guy probably hated me. He's like, what the hell is that?
That's awesome.
The band takes a lot of inspiration from your fellow Swedish doom giants, Candlemass, but we can also see inspirations from bands like Solitude Eternus, Black Sabbath, and other traditional heavy metal groups. If you were to tell someone who had never heard Sorcerer before, what would you say makes them so unique in this genre?
I think that with Sorcerer, being a fan of the band before I joined the band, I think that when you listen to Anders, I mean, he's been playing in, Lion Share, 220 volts, stuff like that. Therion, Christian the same, he's just Demonoid, Therion, Sorcerer. Well, I mean, just Swedish royalty. I think, that's why I always thought, like, is that why we call it Royal Epic Doom? I mean, how do you say that? Like, I mean, these guys are like the front runners of, like, Swedish metal for me as a fan. Yeah, I would say that Sorcerer, in a nutshell, is basically just we play music that we like, and it comes out as doomy. Is what it is. I don't know. We didn't go out with the whole aspect to be doomy. It just happened that way. And like I said, being a fan of the band beforehand and hearing these guys play was just like pinched me. Am I playing with these guys right now? It's kind of cool. If I had to explain to somebody, I would say like Black Sabbath or the old classic hard rock, muddy, dirty, awesome hard rock.
Perfectly said.
It'll change your life.
That's the tagline. That's the tagline that we'll stick with. So you guys have been signed to Metal Blade Records since 2015. Tell us what it's like to have one of the world's most prolific metal labels in your corner.
They've been absolutely the coolest label to work with. They're just so easygoing. When I did the first gig with Sorcerer in Slovenia, I actually got to meet some Metal Blade representatives that flew over. Just absolutely lovely people, genuinely interested in the band. Like, they're very, very focused on what they're putting out. Because Metal Blade, Brian Slago was underground for the underground. And he just put out music that he liked, and he said, like, screw you guys, I'm going to put out what I love. And that still is the way they are today. They put out music that they love, and they've been absolutely great to work with. They just kind of show up at gigs like, hey, we're from Metal Blade. It's like, oh, how are you guys doing? It's great. And they're just always lovely every time. So just a really, really good experience to work with those guys.
Outstanding. Glad to hear it. And it's nice to have a relationship with a label that doesn't put so much pressure on you. They don't have giant expectations. They just kind of let you perform and do your thing and kind of let things go organically.
Well, I mean, the cool thing with Metal Blade was, when we decided to do a concept record and stuff like that, I mean, we had an idea, like, for the special edition box sets and stuff like that. Like, we had the vision. Like, there's a reason we have, like, certain things planned. So, and they were just so, like, yes, awesome. That's fantastic. Like, let's try and make it work. And they really bent over backwards to make things work. And I think that's just a great relationship. Like, they want to put out quality music, and I respect that. I listen to a lot of their releases. Yeah, they're just really super easy to work with. They're not like this typical, what you would think a record label is, like, oh, you have to do what I say when I say it. When I say jump, you say how high. It's not like that at all. It's more like, let's talk, let's figure it out. It's just really easy to work with them.
Perfect. Justin, are there any other projects that you or your friends are working on that you would like to give a shout out to? And also, what are you currently listening to from 2020? It's been an amazing year of music, so we're kind of curious as to what's on your playlist right now.
I have my own personal projects. I'm working with a band called Cult of Whispers and Autumn's Morning as well, alongside Sorcerer. But Sorcerer takes, precedence over those projects, But what I'm listening to right now, I don't know if you guys have seen it. I kind of started, like, when this whole pandemic broke out. I thought, yeah, it kind of sucks being a musician and not being able to tour. But then I thought about, like, these, like, young bands that are hungry and kind of doing the pub circuits and trying to make something of themselves. and they literally can't do anything. So my initiative was to actually reach out on the internet. So I had it by my, artist page on Facebook where people can kind of mail in, and they drop me demos. And I'm listening to a lot of new bands from all over the world, and it's a wide array of death metal to alternative rock to acoustic stuff. I'm giving everything a listen and trying to weed out some things that I think personally are good that I like. So I do reviews and stuff like that, but it's mostly on stuff that I enjoy to listen to kind of like spotlight and push these bands into the limelight. So lots of really cool stuff. Lots of stuff in the States I've been getting, actually. Lots of black metal in the States, which is really bizarre. Apparently there's a huge black metal scene over there, and I think that that's badass. If I look aside from that, I've been listening to actually classics. I haven't really been listening to like the big bands. Like I've been listening to a lot like Behemoth, The Satanist, a lot, because I think it's a fantastic record. I mean, I don't get tired of it anytime. And, old Dissection stuff, Merciful Fates, just classics to get me through the day, because this whole COVID thing is really kind of a buzzkill. And what a better way to start your day than to listen to kind of like old records that you used to love and listen to when you were a kid. So that's what I'm into right now. But of course, like I said, I'm listening to a lot of new bands as well and trying to just give them a push in the right direction.
That's awesome, man. That's basically kind of what we're doing here at Metal Forge Reviews too. Is we come from a very tight knit community in New England, where musicians will be in 3 other bands and they'll kind of share. We're trying to kind of give back to the community in terms of giving reviews, giving interviews, and just kind of allowing bands, big bands and small bands, kind of a platform to showcase their music. So I think that's really cool and respectable that you're doing that yourself.
I mean, that's the most important thing. I mean, without fans, there wouldn't be music, really. They're just as integral as the band members. I mean, they're like kind of the mythological extra member of the band. Like without them, you couldn't do things that you could be capable of doing. Bands like Metallica and stuff, they wouldn't be as big as they are without the fans. And that's just like a no-brainer for me. So of course, I think that you have to have some honesty, some humility, and it doesn't take much time to give back to the fans. It's so important. And that's something actually that we do. When we played at Prog Power in 2019, it was like, let's go out, let's mingle. It's not often that we're in the States. It was just a really cool experience. People were just kind of blown over by, oh, Jesus, you guys, I have your 1988 demos. And I was kind of the young guy. I was like, oh, I was 4 when that came out. But, still, it was just something to give back to the fans. I mean, they're just so integral and so important that it would be a shame not to go out and shake some hands and just talk to the people that helped you out by buying music and going to your gigs and just having a good night out.
Definitely. I think that's one of the things I could speak on my behalf. I don't want to speak for you, Brandon, but I'm sure you feel the same way, and I'm sure you feel the same way too, Justin. But one of the things that's so cool about metal is no matter how big you get, even the biggest bands in the world, Metallica, Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, they're some of the most humble people. They know how integral their fans are to their music, to their success, to the drive that they have to record that next album and stuff like that. So that's very awesome to hear you, and it's almost like a full circle type of thing where you grew up in the scene, you kind of had the opportunity to know who Sorcerer was, and now you're in the band. You are that fan who has joined that band that you were listening to and knew about growing up. So that's awesome. Justin, thanks so much for your time today. And we just wanted to say thank you. And Sorcerer's newest album, Lamenting of the Innocent, is out now on Metal Blade Records. You can support this epic doom metal band by opening your wallets and buying their merchandise and albums. Don't forget that you can also support the band by sharing their music videos and songs on your social media accounts. As always, be safe out there, be kind to one another, and take care.